And welcome back to SWBA Today. And in today's episode, we're going to be looking at the game fives that took place yesterday. So we're going to be recapping those. And we're also going to be looking at the two games that are set to take place today, as we got the Los Angeles Lakers versus the Minnesota Timberwolves. And we have the Houston Rockets versus the Golden State Warriors. And so let's go ahead and jump into last night's action, as we had 4 games in total that took place. And so let's start with the first game, and that was the Indiana Pacers versus the Milwaukee Bucks. And so this game was a great game. It came down to the last possession, so to speak, as Tyrese Halliburton was able to get to the lane and get a layup over Giannis. And so that was the difference. And so I think that this was a gut check game for the Indiana Pacers. I think that they were down by 6-7 points with a little time to go. They ended up getting it into overtime, and they ultimately won the game 119-118. And so let's start with the Indiana Pacers and just, again, what they were able to do to close out this series. And so Tyrese Halliburton was huge. 26 points. He had 5 rebounds. He had 9 assists. He had 3 steals. He had 3 blocks. And he got to the free throw line 4 times. He hit all 4 of those. He was just 10 of 22 from the field, but in 42 minutes, I think that Tyrese Halliburton did a terrific job as far as getting downhill and getting baskets for the Indiana Pacers when they needed it in the clutch. Miles Turner, look, he had a much better game than he did a couple games ago. I think that he's really turned the page since then. 43 minutes played for him, 21 points, 9 rebounds, 8 of 10 from the free throw line, and 5 of 11 from the field. Very impressed with his interior defense that he gave the Pacers, just really helping to wall off Giannis and make it difficult there. Pascal Siakam, only 10 points. And then when you look at the bench for the Indiana Pacers, once again, they get good contributions. TJ McConnell coming off the bench with 18 points. He got to the free throw line 4 times, and he was 7 of 11 from the field. So the Pacers just putting it together, I think, a complete game. And I just love the fact that they were able to come back, because one of the things that I had talked about with this team is their ability to really lock in the clutch. That is one thing that I think is really overlooked with the Pacers, is they're really a very good clutch team, and you got a chance to see that. And I feel like that absolutely translates as you move further into the playoffs, because I think the games slow down that much more. Possessions are much more at a premium, and then you do have to kind of lock in and gut it out sometimes like this, and you might have to go on a quick 7-8-0 run to get back into the game. And so that is, championship qualities of a team. So you got to give the Pacers a lot of credit there. And then I think just the eye-popping stat of the night for me was a 50-38 advantage for the Pacers over the Bucks in the paint. I thought that if anybody's going to win the paint battle, it would be the Bucks, because they have that type of size with Giannis, Bobby Portis. You got Brook Lopez, like all these guys that can really be effective inside, and they got beat up in the paint. So next, looking at the Milwaukee Bucks, Giannis, again, a terrific game. He had 30 points. He had 20 rebounds. He had 13 assists. 9 of 17 from the field, 1 of 2 from deep. Really looked like Giannis was going to get the Bucks to steal this one. Had a nice and one late in the game, but still just was not enough. Bobby Portis really turned it on over the last couple games in this series. He had 14 and 10. And then I think the story of the night for the Milwaukee Bucks was Gary Trent Jr. He had 33 points, so he had a monstrous game, just like he had a monstrous game earlier in the series. And the Bucks were in a situation where they probably could have dribbled it out, or I should say they were looking to draw a foul so they can go to the free throw line and end the game that way. They pass it over to Gary Trent Jr. It goes out of bounds, went right through his hands. And the next possession is when the Indiana Pacers would go on to win the game. And so that is just the season for the Bucks. Just terrible ending, because he had a great game, really hit some big shots. Again, to go with those 33 points, he had 5 rebounds, 2 assists, and 5 steals. So defensively, he was all over the place and so forth to end like that. Just the irony for the Bucks. And so otherwise, other than that, I mean, the biggest story is what happened after the game was over. And so I'm not even going to go into that. You guys can go take a look at that. And I'm sure that's probably everywhere right now with Giannis, and then also to Tyrese Halliburton's father there. So aside from that, this is a tough ending for the Bucks because you're probably not going to have Damian Lillard, for the year. Maybe he does make it back. Yeah, hopefully he does. But you really have questions now with what directions you go. I think that Giannis is not the type of player that's going to ask out, but the Bucks have to figure something out because as constructed, it's not working. And we just talked about how Giannis is having these great numbers. Yes, he's having great numbers, but he is 1-9 in his last 10 playoff games. And so that is not what the Bucks signed up for with the type of payroll that they have and the type of players that they have. They have got to figure something else out. So next up, let's look at the next game that took place here, which actually it was kind of it took off at about the same time. And so it was the Detroit Pistons and the Knicks, 106-103. The Pistons win. The series now is 3-2 with the New York Knicks leading this series. Now they have to go back to Detroit. And so I think that the first key takeaway out of this was just the Detroit Pistons' ability to close, because going back to game 1, they really had that game. They had the first game, and then they just did not play well in the last 3 to 4 minutes of that basketball game. And then the Knicks really took off and they won that game. And so then you see the Pistons come back and knot up the series. And then when you look at the Pistons at the game before here in game 4, they played better basketball than the Knicks, and really it should have been a foul called on Tim Hardaway Jr. I think that he probably makes those free throws or makes a couple of those free throws, and that essentially ends that game. And so we're looking at maybe a 3-2 the opposite way if the Pistons were able to take care of business in game 1 and then they were able to get that call, and then you add in the games that they've won. And so, I just think that that is key. Number one, the Pistons actually closed well in this game. And so it just shows me that they're learning as this playoff series goes along. Once again, Cade Cunningham, he's turned it on a lot since game 1. He's been a lot more effective. He's been a lot more better. And when I say effective, I think he's been a lot more efficient. He was plus 13 in the plus-minus box score in this one. And with his 24 points, he also had 8 rebounds and 8 assists. So he almost had a triple-double. And he just looks comfortable out there. He's playing at, his pace, his level. And I think that as the Pistons really follow his lead. And so, they were definitely poised in this game. And so that's key number 1 there. And then with the veterans, I think that this is why you got them. Like Tobias Harris gave you 17. You got a good production here from Dennis Schroeder as well with 14. And so these are players that you brought in via free agency, via trade to help you out. Malik Beasley played well with 10. So that's what you want if you're the Detroit Pistons. And then when we shift and we look over to the Knicks, there was an interesting substitution towards the end of this game where Jalen Brunson and then also Josh Hart were out of the game and they couldn't get back into the game. And so that was interesting that they got left out of the game. It was because there was no dead ball to get them in. And then also, I think Coach Tibbs just couldn't get the timeout because the Pistons had the ball. So that is, I think, point number 1 there from the Knicks. Just as far as a strategical thing, they've got to make sure that they get those guys back in during the stretch. Next, I think the injuries. And so Jalen Brunson looked like he got a little shaken up again with the ankle. And so he was kind of limping around. And then Josh Hart took a pretty bad fall in this one as well. And then when you look at the overall, the bench scoring for the Pistons much better than what the Knicks did. They only got Mitchell Robinson, who had the real points off the bench with 13. You only got 2 from Cameron Payne and then 4 from Miles McBride. So I think that if the Knicks are going to win this next game, it's going to take more than just their stars to bring them home. So they're going to have to play a lot more better on the bench. And so we'll see what happens, because I do think the Pistons very much believe that they can come back and win this series. I picked the Pistons to win this series. Let's see if they can knot things up in Detroit. And I think that if they are able to win in Detroit, I think you really have to bet on the Pistons because they've already shown that they can come into Madison Square Garden and they can play with the Knicks. I said it before. Really, they almost could have been leading this series 2-0 had they been able to close in game one. And so next, I wanted to jump into the next game that took place here, and that was the Orlando Magic versus the Boston Celtics. And so the Celtics take care of business big time in this one. They win 120-89. And once again, I think that we have to point to the stars for the Celtics. And so starting with Jason Tatum, his 35 points, his 10 assists and 8 rebounds, nearly had a triple-double, and he was 10 of 16 from the field. So if he's dealing with a wrist injury, now you can definitely not tell it. I think that he's certainly back into a rhythm. He's comfortable there. Jaylen Brown had 23 points. And so what I'm very impressed with the Celtics is they didn't even have big numbers from Kristaps Porzingis or Al Horford. They both only had 9 points, but they were effective in the things that they did on the court. And they still don't have Drew Holiday, and they're still able to pull it out. So it just lets you know how deep this team is. And then also, I think much like the Cleveland Cavaliers, they're sending a message that they're not playing around with teams that they should be eliminating from the playoffs. And I always think that that is really a sign of a team that is poised to go deep in the SWBA playoffs. And so we'll see how far they go, but they take care of the Magic. And so on the other side of this thing with the Magic, look, I think that they were frustrated with the calls. And I think just overall with the Magic, my biggest takeaway for the season for them is just that they've got to find a way to play much faster, and they've got to be a lot more efficient on the offensive end. They have too much talent to be in situations where they go scoreless and they can't score the ball the way that they do. I mean, defensively, team is terrific, but they have got to figure out a way to get better offensively. You should not be going into the type of droughts that they do offensively, especially when you have Franz Wagner and then you have Ben Carroll as well. Those are two offensively gifted players that could just light it up. So you have got to find ways for others to contribute here. And so tough ending for the Magic. I do like the direction that they are going with a franchise, but I do think it's going to come down to adding a little bit more of a scoring punch, whether that comes in the draft or free agency. Definitely that's something the Magic need to take a look at. And so next up, the last game of the night, and that was the Nuggets versus the Clippers. And so look, I thought that this is exactly what we expected. With the Clippers, they would find a way to really just drop a game. And first and foremost, I think for the Nuggets, you got to give Jamal Murray a ton of credit because this was the playoff Jamal Murray. This is the Jamal Murray that was in the bubble. This is the Jamal Murray that was on those teams where they came back from the 3-1 deficit like he was on. He had 43 points in this one, plus 17, 7 assists, 3 steals, 8 of 14, 7 of 26. I mean, like literally when he was throwing the basketball up, it might have been like him throwing a rock into an ocean. Like he just could not miss. And so that's point number 1 out of this game. And then point number 2, the Clippers have no answer for Nikola Jokic. Yet again, he has another triple-double, 13 points, 10 rebounds, and 12 assists. I mean, he's pretty much been a quarterback for him there. And then Michael Porter Jr., I've been impressed with him coming back from the shoulder injury. I thought that maybe was going to hurt him moving forward in this series, but man, his jumper has been looking good. And Aaron Gordon has kind of come, I think, to life in this series as it's gone on. He seemed like he had a lot more energy, especially after that, getting that game-winning dunk. And so he had 23, 7 of 11 from the field. And so these guys, look, they've been to the title. Like they've got the chip, and you're starting to see that type of experience. On the other side of the things, when you look at the Clippers, Kawhi continues to play well, 20 and 11. He also had 9 rebounds. Zubac played well with 27, and he also had 5 rebounds. And so that was a point. He didn't get as many rebounds as you wanted. But what worries you about the Clippers? James Harden, 11 points, 8 rebounds, 5 assists. And so this is one of the things that I've been talking about earlier on, I think, SimWorld Today. And just one of the points was just about James Harden and the fact that in the playoffs, something happens. And this was this type of game where James Harden can't go out and just score 11 points on 3 of 9. And so I'm not saying that it's just his fault or anything like that, but this is the time where it's a pivotal game and you need more from him. And so he's been terrific for this basketball team, really, throughout the season. And then to get to this moment in a critical, pivotal game where you got to have it, you can't go out and have that type of production. And so that was tough, I think, for the Clippers. And then once again, the key, the bench. How is it that you have just literally one person on the Nuggets bench that is scoring the points, and then the Clippers have such a deep bench and they're not able to wear down the Denver Nuggets? And I'll say it again, I think that this series is really favoring the Denver Nuggets, and it's just something about the Clippers where they find a way to just give the game away and really give the series away. And so I think that this is a very tough loss. And now I think that with the Denver Nuggets, they have 2 games to get 1 win. And I think that the Denver Nuggets will figure it out and advance, but we'll see what happens once the next game takes place, or game 6. And so now let's go ahead and jump into some quick game 5 previews as we have the first game taking place. And that's going to be the Golden State Warriors versus the Houston Rockets. And so this series shift over from Golden State now to Houston again. And so Warriors up 3-1, and you're going against the Rockets who, it's been chippy, right? They've been playing some great defense, talking about the Rockets. They've been giving the Warriors everything that they can handle. And I've been super impressed with the Rockets and their ability to come back in the games. Like, I think that a lot of other teams would have just packed it in and folded, right? And this is why no matter what happens to the Rockets tonight, the Rockets are going to be a team that I think that they have sent a message as well. Defensively, that is their identity. But once they figure out a way to consistently, I think, put that offense together in a playoff series, they're a team that's going to be trouble, right? And so I love the fact that they've competed the way that they have. But with that being said, I don't see them getting out of this series and continuing it on. I think that tonight it ends. I think if Jimmy Butler is anywhere near where he was in game 4, that's going to be enough. Steph Curry lives for these moments. Draymond Green has been there. Steve Kerr has been there. And I just think with the Rockets, when you're seeing your main player, right, go from 38 down to single digits, he's going to be home. And I think that Jalen Green's going to play well. But I just feel like that the Warriors, with the experience that they have, they're built for this. And so I think that they're going to withstand the type of runs that the Rockets are going to really throw at them. And that's what they've done really the last couple games, is they've been just withstanding the Rockets and just the type of runs that they've been putting onto them. And so I like the Warriors to take care of business in this one and move on 4-1. And I think that Jimmy Butler comes out in a big way tonight. So next up, the next game that we have left is going to be the Lakers versus the Timberwolves. And so, look, I picked the Timberwolves in 7, but I guess they said that we don't need 7 games because they have just absolutely taken care of business. And I think that really the key stat in this series has been the Timberwolves and their ability to close at the end of games. They've been outstanding in the second half of each game. Even in a loss, the Timberwolves have been the better team. And even in the one loss that they've had in the series, there's only been a quarter where they didn't play well. And it was more so about the Timberwolves not playing up to their potential than it was the Lakers just outright beating them. And so I just think that the challenges that we knew the Lakers were going to face with, okay, how do you maximize LeBron and then Luka, because they kind of do the same thing with the basketball. Obviously, Luka, he scores the way he does and LeBron scores the way he does, but still it's similar with the way that they're quarterbacking the offense, right? Like each one has to have the ball in their hands, and it's almost like a kind of your turn, my turn type of offense. And I think at times the Lakers have been very stagnant. And I also think that the Timberwolves have been relentless at attacking them when they get into that. Like we talked about this a couple games ago, or maybe the last game, just the traps that they ran at Luka, forcing turnovers into that type of slow offense that they like to run. The transition game has been there for the Timberwolves, and they've been relentless at attacking them in the paint. Talking about the Lakers, who they have no rim protection. They have no player inside that gives them any type of presence on the offensive end. This team is strictly perimeter oriented. And like Nas Reed and these guys like that, they have been huge for the Timberwolves, coming off the bench and things like that. And even Dante DiVincenzo may not lead the Timberwolves in scoring, but man, he's hitting timely shots. He's making timely decisions. And I was talking about the Knicks being the ones who won the trade. Now we're starting to see that the Timberwolves are winning in the trade now too, because I think that Julius Randle, Devin Gento, these guys have been huge in this series, and they're showing why they fit with Anthony Edwards and what they want to do. So expect for the Timberwolves to win tonight. I don't think that they care that they're on the road. And like Anthony Edwards said, he said, hey, look, everybody's picking the Lakers, so we might as well just go on out there and compete. And that's exactly what they did. They did not hang their heads when they got beat in the game. They have just moved on, and they've looked better and better each time out. And so I like them to win tonight. So let me know in the comments what you guys are thinking. Do you feel like the Timberwolves are set to advance over the Lakers, or do you feel like LeBron going to find a way to get one? Next up, what are you guys thinking about the Houston Rockets and the Golden State Warriors? Do you feel like that the Houston Rockets are going to get a game? Not only get a game, maybe make it a series, because they have been going right back at Golden State whenever they go on these runs and things like that. Next, let me know what you guys are thinking from last night's action. What are you thinking here with the Celtics after their dominant performance? Do you feel like that they are headed back to the SWBA finals? What do you think here about Tyrese Halliburton and the way that the Pacers have been playing really over the last course of the season as they look more and more like that team that went to the Eastern Conference Finals? And then let me know what you guys are thinking about the Pistons and the Knicks. I have the Pistons winning this in 7. We'll see what happens. They obviously got to take care of business in Detroit, but do you think that they're going to climb back into this series? Do you feel like that they can win this series? Next, let me know what you guys are thinking about the Clippers and the Nuggets. Do you feel like the Clippers are poised to climb back into this series as they go back home to Los Angeles? Or do you feel like playoff Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic are going to carry the Denver Nuggets past the Clippers? So I'd love to hear what your thoughts are. And as we always say, see the game and be the game. I will see you on the next one. All right, peace.